Welcome in to our next installment of our Dream Job webinar series. I'm Danny Rubin, the founder of Rubin. We provide online resources for business communication skills to include email etiquette. Teachers, any hands up? How many of your students will sometimes send you emails that look like text messages? Any hands up for that? So we help students be appropriate and professional in real world situations. And we like to explore those skills while we examine different jobs, some that are traditional jobs and some like today that are very new and coming onto the scene. And we have a great guest, Paul Silverman, with us from Paris, France. Now, Paul is a longtime friend, and he's been on our webinars 2 times before in a previous role, and I'll let him explain his career history in a minute. So he's always doing things that are interesting and on the forefront and things that you kind of hear about in the news, but maybe not always understand what they are. And he's going to help break that down for us today with digital trading cards and his new company where he works, Sorare. Is that how, am I pronouncing that right, by the way? Sorare.
For now, that's correct.
Yeah. So before we dive into Paul's background, I will share my screen, and if you've been on our sessions before, you know that we like to give out free resources. And we've had a selection of new resources this fall. The first one is some activities to promote inclusion and equity. And these are in a free Google Drive folder, some resources on how to make sure everyone's included in a conversation, dress code for in-person and virtual opportunities, understand how to address people with their preferred pronoun, learn to respect someone's opinion, even if it's not an opinion you agree with, all free, and you're welcome to place them into your class, into your school. And I'll explain how to get these resources in just a moment. We also give this out every time. It's an online presentation checklist, a simple checklist for how to prepare for an opportunity, what to do before you speak and while you're speaking, to give memorable online or virtual presentations. And if you, as a teacher, this is for the teachers here, if you would like these resources, here's all you have to do. Go to the chat right now, please, and type in your email address and the word interested. Email address and interested. And if you are new to our community, brand new to us, we like to have a brief phone call on Wednesday to help you understand our content and how to share it throughout your school. And so again, the word interested and your email if you'd like these inclusion resources, and we'll be happy to provide them to you in the next day or so. And for those who are new to us, you can look for an invitation on your calendar for 5 minutes, and you can always move the time if you prefer a different time. Okay, so we'll announce that again at the end, but please let us know if you'd like those inclusion exercises. Continuing on, a couple other news and notes. We have our next Dream Job interview coming up at right after Thanksgiving with an occupational therapist, Stephanie Lamel. She works at a children's hospital as an occupational therapist. She'll talk to us about her job in medicine and health science. So please look out for information on that. If you're watching this on a recording, you can still have those inclusion resources. Just send us an email, support@rubineducation.com with the subject line below. And finally, everybody joining us today will be receiving a certificate for participating. You'll look for that in your email tomorrow as well. So again, look out for the invite if you requested information from us or the free resources, and also this, everyone's going to get the certificate. Okay, so let me turn off my screen, and we'll bring Paul into the conversation. We appreciate him joining us in his evening at his dinner time, or maybe people in Paris eat dinner later. I don't know. He can tell us, but we're grateful for his time. And so I want to welcome Paul in to the conversation. And Paul, tell us you've had some interesting jobs along the way. Maybe this one is the most unique. I don't know how you would size it up. But take us from the start of your career briefly, hit all the important spots, and bring us up to today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks to everybody who's joining to listen in. Every time I've joined Danny for these talks, they've always been a lot of fun, especially the Q&A session afterwards, towards the end. So I started my career initially. I went to graduate school to study behavioral economics. I was very curious about why people made certain decisions, especially decisions that didn't necessarily seem smart or logical. So why do people buy things when they probably shouldn't buy them? From there, I went and got a job at a research consultancy, and I supported companies that were trying to understand how to better sell their products, how to better market their products, how to improve their products. And while there, I worked on the video game team. So most of my clients at that consultancy were video game companies, Electronic Arts, EA, Microsoft. And so over a number of years, I developed an expertise in video games, especially researching consumers of video games. After that, I moved on and went to work for a video game company called Bethesda. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Bethesda. Some of their more famous games are Fallout, the Elder Scrolls franchise, Skyrim, some of you might know, Doom, Wolfenstein. So while there, I helped Bethesda understand their consumers, the consumers that they wanted to make games for in the future, help them understand what was working in their marketing campaigns, what they could improve, talk to the players who were playing some of their games to understand what they liked, what they didn't like when we put out new content, what people liked about the new content. And so that was a lot of fun. And most recently, I had the opportunity, as Danny mentioned, to join a startup called Sorare. And the startup is very similar to games. There's a lot of games related to it, but what we do is we make digital trading cards, and we sell those digital trading cards, and then we create games that people can play with those cards. And our expertise right now is sports cards. So we sell sports cards like you would get a baseball card or a basketball card, in physical, but we sell a digital version, and then we have people play games, fantasy games, with those cards, and based on their performance, we give them rewards, and we try and make it as fun as possible. And so my role here, as by extension of my work that I've done in the past, is to understand our current consumers, our current users, and the potential users that we could go after and try and engage with our product. And because we're a startup, we're very new, so we have a lot to learn. So I'm pretty busy trying to understand the people who've already adopted and are already purchasing our cards and playing our games, as well as the potential future new users that we could create new experiences and features and types of cards for.
Thank you very much for that. I visited the Sorare site. I attempted to understand it. You sort of got to it a little bit. I want to break it down for me, the teachers and the students, understand, first of all, whenever someone starts talking about digital cards, they bring up the term NFT. I hear that a lot. What does that mean? And what does that mean in the context of these cards, these digital cards?
Yeah, so you can imagine, if you've played games in the past, if anyone's ever played Hearthstone or similar games, you can have cards in video games, but a lot of times those cards live within the video game. The exception or the unique thing about these NFTs that people have heard about in the last year or so is that you actually own that off of the platform of the game. So it's a nuanced difference where it's once you buy one of our cards or once you have one of our cards, you can use it in a different game. You can use it in a different setting, and you can sell it outside of our ecosystem and our platform. So one of the cool things that started to happen and hasn't fully matured is that other people are actually creating games and creating experiences where if you own one of the cards from our game, you can use it in their experience and in their game. So it'd be similar to, imagine back in the day, you bought, if anybody knows Magic the Gathering, and you bought Magic the Gathering cards, and then you and your friends said, hey, we want to make a cool game with its own rules with these Magic cards. you could do that because you have the physical cards and you could sit down and play. With these NFTs, you're allowed to do that essentially because you own the card. It doesn't necessarily belong to the company, to the game developer. And so our users aren't reliant on us in totality to be able to create fun experiences for them.
Okay, so can they buy the cards from you, or they're buying them somewhere else and then they can use them with you, but they can use, okay, so you're producing cards that you're
Yep.
selling,
Yep.
and you can play games with you, but you can also play games with those cards somewhere else.
Exactly. And you can sell them and buy them in other places. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to allow people to remove the card and then bring the card back on once they buy it from in a third party marketplace.
As we get into this conversation, I encourage the students and teachers to please start putting your questions in the Q&A area along the bottom of the Zoom screen. When you put your question, please include your name and your school so we can give you proper credit. So let's understand this a little further. I was under the impression that when you're buying like digital cards or digital art, there's like, because it's valuable because there's only one of them, that it's like it exists in this authentic state, and that's why it's valuable. There's only one. So is that the case here, that if they buy a card from you for an NBA player through your site, does it only exist there, or can it be found somewhere else?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's somewhere in between there. So if you imagine, and we'll go back to the world of physical cards again, when a company made a card for a rookie player,
like
they
Topps
didn't just
or
exactly Topps. They didn't just make one card. They made the design, and then they printed and they produced 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So that's essentially what we're doing. Is we have one design, and then we make 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 of that one design. And so there's 10,000 or 1,000, however many of the design we choose to make, unique cards in the world. And they all have a serial number. So you'll see on our cards, there'll be a count of like one out of 1,000, 10 out of 1,000. And so there's that many unique cards in the world. And what's kind of fun is you get sometimes where there's an athlete. So like Lionel Messi's number 10 on his team, or number 30 now for Paris. And his 30th card that's produced out of the 1,000 becomes a like exceptional collector's item because his number is the number of the card. And so it creates really fun collector narratives that might not necessarily exist in other realms.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions here. Let me get to these, and then I'm fascinated by this, and I'm just trying to understand it myself. So I'll get to me later. Let's get to our attendees. First of all, please try to put your questions in the Q&A. A question from Lori Epic from Department of Rehabilitation Services. Who designs the artwork? It looks very attractive. Do you have an in-house design team? Like, who's making these?
Yeah, so we design them, and we work with artists that are on our team and artists that are partners. At least for now, that's how it's done. I know some of our some other companies that work in the similar vein as us and create digital cards. They'll collaborate with a Nike, or they'll collaborate with Puma, or a famous artist at some point, and have that artist design a card for them. At this point, we don't do that, but that is something that's done in the industry, where most companies like us will have an in-house design team that designs most of the cards. And then for special events, they'll collaborate with a well-known brand or a well-known artist.
Okay. We're getting some really good questions here from Mr. Graham's computer tech class, or maybe that's the teacher. Mr. Graham asked the question. This is a very technical question. I hope you'll like it and know the answer here. How do you handle cross-chain interoperability? For example, can a user trade from Ethereum chain into Polygon chain? Do you know what that means? And what does this question mean? It's different types of Bitcoin or digital currency. Is that right?
Yeah. So what I understand he's asking is essentially what the back end technology, and that's a great question. I don't know the full answer to it. That's not my area of expertise necessarily. But the way the technology works is that he referenced Ethereum. There's a ledger, so tracking a public record of every transaction that's been made. And if you buy or sell one of our cards, it's tracked on that ledger. It's tracked on that public record. And so that's actually at the baseline what allows you to prove that you own that card if you want to take it and use it in a different setting. So we talked about playing in another game. If you wanted to play that other game, the other game would reference the fact that you own that card because there is that public record of who's bought and sold the cards. And so the other game then would have an authentic record to know that you're the actual owner of the card that you claim to be. In terms of moving things into different chains and different ledgers, so to speak, I don't know the answer to that. That's not my area of expertise, so I apologize.
You answered it, well enough. And this is what we call the blockchain, right?
Yes.
Where every transaction is recorded and it's authenticated, and so the idea is that you can trust it more because it's publicly seen and everything that's taking place. Okay, so a couple other good questions here in the chat. We have Stacy LeDuc's class in Flasher High School, North Dakota. For students who are interested in going into this field, what are some classes or skills that you recommend they start learning today so they could hop out of school and jump into the kind of world where you are?
Yeah, it ultimately depends what type of role you want to play.
What are the different jobs?
Exactly. So we're a pretty large company in terms of the different areas of expertise. So I come from a research background. We have people who are game designers and studied game design in school, and they're designing the game that we have. We have people who are computer science experts and programming experts who are building the platform that we build our game on. There are people who are more design oriented, who have experience in either design from an art perspective or design from a user interface perspective. So folks who have learned how to build a mobile app, and folks who have learned to build the front end of a website. We also have a legal team. So if anyone's interested in law in this, it's because we have to license all of these cards and we have to license with all the partners. It's a pretty large team that we have that's working and interfacing with all of the different teams and the different leagues and the different players that we have to get permission from to make the cards. So there's really a lot of different jobs. And, if somebody has an interest in marketing, but they love sports or they love sports cards, we obviously have to market. So, we have folks who are experts in social media. We have folks who are experts in creating cool trailers and creating cool videos that we can put out to entice people to give our product a try.
This reminds me, when we spoke to you when you were at Bethesda, there was an opportunity for students to be like testers and to apply. Is there anything like that at Sorare where students can be involved on some level while they're in school? So
it involved in some level. For ours, it's a little tricky. I know some of the folks that are watching are under 18. Our product, you have to be 18 or older to use. But there are some other products that you can use if you're younger. I know there's a Doctor Who NFT trading game that is available for folks who are below 18.
Okay.
But for us right now, we're just trying to talk to our current users. So we're not as sophisticated as things were at Bethesda, where we had a sign up and we had a forum and we had a panel of folks that we tapped into to play our game as testers.
Okay. There's some great questions from that computer class that's said what's poppin'. So they weren't kidding. They have a lot of really good questions. So I'm going to ask a couple of others. I'm going to combine two, James Eccleston and Jaden DePaul. One is, how do you avoid having your digital card being stolen? And also, how do you stop people from creating duplicates?
So that's ultimately at the base, the beauty of the technology, as I understand it. Because the record of who's bought and who sold the cards is public, there's not really a way to steal the card unless somebody logs into someone else's account and takes it from them. And because of that, we have a pretty sophisticated fraud department that's looking and keeping an eye out for fraud. And we have delays. If there is a major transaction, the transaction doesn't occur immediately. There will be a delay so that we can make sure that it's an authentic transaction. So that's the case, and it's a continuously evolving effort that we have to understand how, because people who are trying to steal cards and be fraudulent, they're always trying to find new ways to do it. So we have to be pretty diligent in understanding the methods that they're employing and then putting countermeasures in place. In terms of duplicating cards, that also is kind of solved by the same problem of this blockchain. And that's ultimately one of the beauties of it, is that we can control the scarcity because we've only created X many of these items. And so somebody who wants to duplicate that, they wouldn't be able to do it because there's no record of that item or that card that they duplicate existing on the public ledger.
Thank you. There's one other question from that class, and then I want you to share some of your visuals. Okay. How exactly is the value? This is from Ashton Strieber. Sorry, want to make it okay. How exactly is the value of these cards set besides just rarity? And how is the value maintained over time to avoid a market crash? We just saw one with this FTX cryptocurrency company. Yep. So, and it's very volatile. Mm-hmm. So how are the prices set? Is it supply and demand just in a digital framework?
Yeah. So when we list the cards, we auction them. And so they're auctioned. And so the price that a card sells for when we sell it is based on the interest, the demand that people want to buy it. There's a couple factors, and this is actually one of the main roles, objectives of my job, is to understand how that value is determined by our users. So there's a couple ways that we try and provide value, and us making the games that I talked about, where you can use the cards that you've purchased and that you own to play a game. We actually give rewards for the winners. So if you do really, really well, and you say, we have a game where we're asking you to put together and compose a team of 5 football players, soccer players that you think are going to score the most this weekend or the first week of the World Cup. And you do better than everyone else who enters in that game, we'll give you a special unique card. We'll give you a collectible item. For some of our competitions that we run, we actually pay Ethereum, and we reward Ethereum to the winners, which is one of the well-known cryptocurrencies. And so there is value that people get from being successful in our game. We also give soccer jerseys, we give NBA jerseys in our NBA game, we give tickets to competitions. So we recently gave away tickets to the El Clasico when Barcelona and Real Madrid played. Wow. So people were able to compete for a VIP, all expenses paid. So that's how we allow players to have something that they can play for. So instead of just having the cards and saying, hey, look, this is really cool, they can use the cards. They can actually get what's called utility out of them if they use them in a smart way. And so that's what I guess sets the floor of the value for the cards. And so a lot of what my job now is understanding the different things and the different incentives that we can give people, and the different goals we can give people, and the different rewards we can give people, which are more valuable to what type of users and what type of players. And then based on that, we can change the types of rewards we're giving. We can change the types of competitions. We can maybe even change the types of cards in the future that we're releasing if we understand that is also impactful to people's interests.
Very interesting. All right. So show us some of the visuals that you've prepared. Help take us inside this world a bit further. And also at the end of that, let's show everybody the cool little thing in the middle of your office. Well, I'll leave that as suspense. You're going to like to see this, everybody, when he gets to the end. So save that for the end of your.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is what our cards look like, and these are the new ones that we created for this most recent year, the 22-23 soccer season. And as you can see, there's different colors. So some of the questions were around scarcity. You can see there's a black card, you can see there's a yellow, a red, a blue, and that's how we as a company have differentiated between
right now, just so you know, right now I'm looking at it says collectibles you could find in this pack, like different countries. Is that the page?
Whoops. How about now?
There you go. There.
I apologize. Yeah, yep. I moved my screen around. So sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you for letting me know. So now here you can see the different colors. And these are the different colors indicate different scarcities. So you could see the red one says 5 out of 100. The black one in the middle of the screen says unique. So that means that that's the only card that exists for that player. So that one inherently is more valuable, or I guess hopefully is more valuable as a result.
Okay.
So,
So keep going.
yeah, so then let me make sure. Yeah, so the way our game works is you then collect those cards and you create a team. And we create teams of 5 in our main game. So someone would create a team of 5 soccer players with 5 cards they own. You can see here there's a goalie, there's 2 defenders, a midfielder, and a forward. And so based on how these players would perform in the real world, like in other fantasy sports some people might play, the team would score that many points, or a commensurate amount of points within our game. And then based on those points and how other people who entered in the game scored, you could potentially win rewards or win achievements.
Okay. Keep going.
So that's our game. Then there's some other things that I think are really interesting that are very similar. So with the World Cup coming up, FIFA released something that is similar, that's interesting. And they have trading cards, kind of, sort of, so that these are really moments. So you can see here, they're collectibles that they have. It's not as much of a game right now. It's more of you can collect moments. So this first one, if everybody remembers, Carly Lloyd in the USA versus Japan game in the most recent women, or I guess 2 women's World Cups ago, Carly Lloyd scored a whole bunch of goals back in 2015. And so this right here is actually a video of that. And so, cool. Is it playing for you?
Yes, it is.
So the NFT that they're selling is actually the video of this goal that was scored, which is kind of cool. It's the big one where she kicked it. So
just a quick question. When you say the NFT they're selling, what does that exactly mean? The non-fungible token, meaning the card itself is an NFT?
Yeah, so yeah, the moment is wrapped as an NFT.
The moment.
So that moment of her scoring the goal, it's tied to a serial, essentially a random string of items of letters and numbers. And there's only a limited number of NFTs that represent that moment. So it becomes very much like a cool collector game for folks who say, I want to own all of the US goals that were scored, and there's a limited scarcity of them. So it creates, there's some people that really love that, going out and collecting and finding. And if they have an attachment to the player, or they have an attachment to a team or to the sport, it becomes really cool to say, hey, there's only X many of these in the world, and one of them belongs to me. Even though you could go out and watch that video on YouTube just as easily, owning something that is part of this community of folks, where there's only a limited number of these items within that community, it is really exciting for certain types of people.
I have a question about this. So in the olden days, you would collect baseball cards, for example, and you have some great cards. You put them in a binder in plastic sleeves. Somebody comes over your house and you're like, hey, check out all my baseball cards. So what is the equivalent here? Like, if somebody wanted to show them off, do they take their friend to a website where everything they have is like housed like in a little card garage, and they can just like see all their cards?
I wish I owned some of these right here. I wish I could log in and show you, but I forgot my password, and it'd be too many steps to get that. But essentially, yeah. So what we have, we call it a gallery. And you can essentially look at all of your cards, and it's kind of like a really pretty organized room of all your cards on your website. You can go look at someone else's gallery. So if you and I both played the game, I could actually look up your account and say, oh, look at all these really cool cards that Danny owns. I think that this is one of the places where some of us and our competitors might be lagging. I don't think it's as fun to look at the digital libraries of cards as it is maybe in real life yet. Hopefully we'll get there.
Okay.
I think that that's somewhere where there's definitely room for improvement, is creating that same type of really fun experience of checking out someone else's collection or sharing your collection with other people.
Yeah, because right, part of the fun of this is if you have these great cards, you want people to know you have them and you want to show them to your friends and family. And it's like a big part of who you are. So
You
that's
think so? That's I think one of the important parts of my job is to see if we know that's important for people with physical cards, but is it as important for the types of people that like to collect digital cards? And it might not be.
okay, right. And this is
So,
an
so we
example of
might
the
find
work
that
you do.
people who collect digital cards, they collect them for a different reason. And so we're still
Interesting.
starting to really try and learn and understand what those motivations are. And in return, what we need to do to help people really fulfill whatever it is that's driving them to do this behavior.
Yeah, and what you're doing a lot of ways is you're creating research in a space that doesn't have a lot of research yet. You're still figuring out who the
Mm-hmm.
audience is, what their behaviors are, what they're drawn to. Like this is a very nascent world. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
almost forgot, I'd be remiss. Can you please share the picture? Let's set it up first.
Okay.
And I think everyone's going to like this. You're all going to want to go work at Sorare after you see this, but tell them what you're about to show them.
Yeah. So at the office, and this was the reason I took the job, which I'm happy
It really,
about.
yeah, I can vouch.
At the office, because we're a sports company, and we want to make sure that we attract people, and give people a way to exercise at work. Very small soccer field, soccer pitch. You'll see it in a second once I share my
Yeah,
screen
sorry, I
in
turned off
the
your screen
office.
share before.
So you see it now?
Check that out, everybody.
Yeah,
In
so we
his
have a little
office.
we have a little court in the office where we can kick the ball back and forth, and you can see there's a little net there. And some of my colleagues are playing essentially tennis, but with a soccer ball. So we play the rules of tennis, but kicking the ball over the net instead of with rackets.
Raise your hand in the Zoom if you think that's cool. If you think that's a pretty cool thing to have in your office. I mean, really, it's in the middle of everybody's desks, right? Like
Yeah,
people are
kind of. It's
working
it's
around it.
it's on it's on like the way the office is structured. It's on the floor where we have most of our meeting rooms. So it's nice because French culture. This is something I didn't know. French work culture is nobody works during lunch. Everybody eats lunch together, and then everybody does some sort of social activity after lunch. So this becomes one of our after lunch social activities. Is everybody hangs out and we pick teams and we play this game for maybe 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes, and then we go back to work.
So just so we can understand, everybody today is in the United States watching this. And so we're used to a 8 to 4, 8 to 5, or 9 to 5 schedule. In America, we're notorious for working harder than other countries. So you say a lunch break and then a social activity. How much time does that take during the day aside from the actual work you're doing?
Well, I think we're still getting work done quite a bit. I think what ends up happening is we get some more collaborative work done during the social hour while we're eating and hanging out. It might not be as structured as like, hey, here's a meeting and here's a thing, but we're talking about
I
things, and
see.
so we're collaborating a little bit. It's just less. But I think that one thing that I noticed that's different from French culture to American culture is when people are at their desks in France, they're actually working. Whereas when I was in the US, a lot of times people would be at their desk, but they'd be on Facebook, and they would be doing something that's somewhat personal. That that's fine as long as the work gets done. But I think in French culture, it's very much hey, I'm dedicating my focus to work while I'm at my desk. And when I'm not at my desk, I'm enjoying myself and becoming refreshed so that when I sit back to my desk, I focus. So I think people, they allocate time a little bit differently, I'd say.
Yeah, I think the Europeans have a different perspective on work-life balance than many Americans aspire to that, but end up taking work home with them, and they can't separate, and it's all mixed together. And many of us are guilty of that. We do have another great question from Mr. Graham's class. Thank you for participating. This is, I don't know the name, but thank you. Do you guys offer real prints of the trading card? Do you ever make physical versions of the
Yeah,
digital
that's a
cards?
great question. At this point, we haven't. That's something that I don't think that is completely outside the question for the future. We do sometimes make cards that are physical to represent our cards. So as like a promotional thing, we've made magnets of our cards that we've shared out. Sometimes for the athletes, when we have athletes play our game, we'll send them a physical copy of their card that they can have for their office or for their home.
Yeah.
Is a memento. But we haven't started making the similar physical cards for all of our fans and for all of our players to have in real life
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
Might be
I'm
in the
curious.
future. I'm not committing though. It's
Yeah, of course.
I like the idea.
You're not on the record as saying you're going to do it, but if like, okay, so this goes to my next question. From what you've understood so far, what is the demographic of your user? Male, female, ages, where they are in the world? Who is
I
doing this
honestly,
right now?
I think right now it's hard to answer that. That's still an open question. That's still it
You have
changes.
some data, right? I mean, everybody
Yeah. Well,
signed up and
we
it's
do have
really
some data. In all honesty, I can't share too much of what we
fair,
have.
fair.
But it's your sports fan that you would think, a male, late 20s, early 30s.
Right,
That's who you're going to assume is going to show interest in early adopter of what we have. And so our goal now is to expand beyond that early adopter group, the most intuitive group, and say, okay, who else could be interested in this? And do we need to change the product? Do we need to add features and whatnot?
Well, one question I have is right now you can't play this if you're under 18. So
Mhm.
are there any opportunities to get under 18 so you can reach an audience that's probably even more understanding of today's technology and all of what's going on? I mean, this seems like a massive audience that you can't
Mhm.
reach right now. So what's the opportunity there, or is it just a dead end?
Yeah, I mean, that's again an answer I can't give you, but I would say it's pretty challenging with regulations and
Because
uh,
it's sports betting. Because it's sports betting. Is
it's
that
not
why?
sports betting.
Okay.
That's part of the challenge is it's very similar to a lot of people, and so if we don't see ourselves as sports betting, I don't think regulators right now see us as sports betting. Um, but I think that there's some people who might assume that's the case at first glance, and so you made that assumption yourself. So,
Right. Right.
but once you start to understand and learn the product a little bit more closely, you realize that it's not the case.
It's not a
But
betting, it's just a game. And there
Mhm.
that's is that the distinction? Like this is
Yeah,
not betting, even though there's real money involved. I mean, this is actual people's
potentially,
money.
yeah, yeah.
So it's real money, but you're playing a game, not betting on.
You're not really, you don't necessarily have to pay to enter into anything. You just have to have the cards to enter. And you're not losing anything by entering. So you're not actually like gambling in any way because you still
Okay.
own the card, right?
Right. So right, even if your team doesn't win the fantasy challenge, you still own all of you don't lose any of
Yep.
the things. You don't have to like give your cards to the winning team and like you
Yep.
lose like a card game or something like that. It's still
Exactly.
you just walk away with everything you showed up with.
Yep.
It's helping me understand this if nobody else. But students, can I see it or teachers any hands up? Has this conversation as we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, has this been helpful to you to understand a bit more like what this world looks like and how it's taking shape? And from hearing from Paul that it's still very early. He's the researcher. He's still gathering data. There's a lot more to this story that will be told in the coming years. But one thing seems to be that it's not going away. It's only going to grow as more people come to understand it and become part of this world. We'll wrap up with Paul in just a minute. I want to reiterate everything I said at the beginning. For those who missed it, I mentioned that as a company, the Rubin Company, we provide resources for employability skills, and we have a free Google Drive folder of lessons for inclusivity and equity. And it's everything listed here in the box on the right. Lots of videos and activities that help to make sure all students respect each other and value each other's opinions. Love to give you that, as well as an online presentation checklist of some quick tips to give stellar virtual presentations. And if you missed this offer at the beginning, this is how you get it. Go to the chat right now, type the word interested and your email address in the chat, and we'll pass along those resources to you. And if you're new to the Rubin community, what we like to do is have a brief conversation on Wednesday, we'll send you a 5-minute invite on your calendar to tell you about these resources and help you find them, locate them, and share them with your school. Last couple of things, we have another session coming up right after Thanksgiving with an occupational therapist. Love to have you join us for that on November 30th. If you'd like the resources I mentioned for equity and you're watching on a recording, many teachers do, you can have the same resource. Just send us an email with the instructions on the screen. And finally, everybody here is going to receive a certificate for being part of our session today. You can look for that in your email on Wednesday. So we'll come back to Paul and wrap up with some last thoughts and questions. I think you helped all of us understand like just what this business is. How many companies are there like Sorare that are allowing you to, purchase cards, house your cards, play games with the cards? Are you unique in that way? Are there other companies popping up? Do you have the exclusive license with MLB, NBA, all that?
Yeah.
Who else is out there?
So there's a lot of companies out in the world that are creating the digital trading cards. So most of the traditional trading card companies have converted to some sort of digital trading card that they have. I think what makes us unique is the fact that we're on the we're on the blockchain, so we have these NFTs, and there's that persistent ownership that users and owners get to enjoy, as well as the games that we're creating around the cards themselves. So we're creating things you can do with the cards beyond just own them and show them off. And there are other companies that are doing this. I think we've been fortunate to be one of the first to do it in the world of cryptocurrency and blockchains. So we're fortunate from that realm, and we've had the opportunity to get some exclusive licenses to your point. But there are a plethora. There's an uncountable number of different companies that are
probably
creating
a new one every day.
Yeah, there's new ones every day, and it's really cool because each one is trying something new and different. And some are showing really cool videos, like we saw from FIFA for that goal that Carly Lloyd scored. Some of them, like us, are trying to focus more on the game. Other ones are focusing more on some sort of special event that's happening. There's like the NCAA tournament. Maybe you'll see a bunch of cards related to the NCAA March Madness when that occurs.
Like buzzer beater cards.
Mm-hmm. So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so does it seem like we're kind of in such an early stage where it's a little bit of a Wild West, and there's lots of ideas, and we're going to see over time like which ones emerge as like what customers really want, or the company that really breaks through.
I think personally, I think it's going to continuously evolve. I think we're never really going to be at a mature. I guess maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but the technology around how you can enjoy and consume these things is going to continue to change. You hear all this talk of the metaverse from Facebook and how maybe they're pulling back from it, but 5-10 years from now, we're going to have new technologies, and we're going to have new devices in our hands, in our pockets. We're going to have eventually maybe glasses that have little screens on them. Augmented reality is going to continue to improve. So there's going to be new ways to enjoy sports, enjoy cards, show your fandom of different teams and different athletes. So I think, to your point, we're very early on, but I think it's something that's going to continue to evolve, because technology is going to get better, and because people are just going to get new ideas. They're going to see something cool, and they're going to come up with an even cooler idea, and it's going to push the boundary.
Very cool. Well, as we wrap up, I want to say thank you to Paul. Thank you for giving us your time after your work hours. Wish you the best in France and in this exciting space. Can we give some hands up in Zoom, please, to say thanks to Paul for giving us his time during his dinner hour, and we will send out the recording and look forward to seeing everybody in a couple of weeks after Thanksgiving for occupational therapy conversation. Thank you again for being here, and have a great holiday, everybody, with your families where you are. We appreciate it.